I was, you know, unknown to my mom and me, I being born with ALD and not knowing it, a lot of doctors assumed that I was ADHD, and supposedly I had slow learning disability. Although I got my GED in the mail before my graduation class graduated, um, and I just, I was terrible in school. I didn't want to learn in school. Um, I was a bad kid, doing crazy things back in the 80s as a baby, 90s, 2000s. And, that there was a lot of signs that I know parents have for signs for their kids today. And I'm not saying that it's genetic related or that your child has some disease and but genetics matter. Genetics play a big part into our children and our children's children, grandchildren, or whatever kind of children you have in your life. But it's really crazy because in the third grade they told my mom I was mentally retarded. In the third grade, they told my mom, I have it on paper. They told my mom I was mentally retarded in the third grade. And I was put on a short bus and bused to another school. And I was so angry that these people wouldn't let me out of these classes, that I had to go to the same classroom every day. I would intentionally go in late because I didn't want my friends to see me going into the same classroom every day. And when I was 13 and my brother was 18, he was killed. And when he was killed, I was mad at the world, so I was fighting everybody. I was getting in fights all the time, getting in trouble with the law by fighting as a juvenile. I did a lot of bad things as a juvenile because of my anger of my brother, and maybe because of the genetics and the ALD. There was no signs for me that I recall. I played sports. I was really active when I was young. And there was never really any signs that, other than being ADHD supposedly and having a learning disability, there was not really any signs that showed I had this rare genetic disease that most boys are born with, and unfortunately they go from normal to death very quickly sometimes. But there's nothing that took place in my life that I can really recall that told me or showed my mother that we had this. My mother was just going through random testing for her own health back in, before 2017, but in 2017 my mom found out that she had it. And she told me, she's like, you should get tested. And I'm like, Mom, I don't want to be tested. Man, we don't want to go to the doctors. And and then she told me, she's like, well, if I passed it to you, you definitely passed it to Gia. And Gia's my daughter. I'm like, well, that's a problem. I need to get tested. So I went and got tested, and of course I came back positive. And we immediately rushed Gia in to get her tested, her blood tested, and of course she came back positive. And most of the stuff that I'm able to find on ALD is 40-year-old research. There's no cure. One in every, 19,000 births, another child's born with it. Most of the time, in my family history, obviously, having all my history documents from my family dating back to the War of Roses, I can see where the genetic came from. And, one day my daughter, if she wants to have children, she's going to have to risk the option if she wants to pass this or risk passing this on to her kids, because there's a 50% chance. And so that's how the genetic just continues to family, for generations to generations. And there's no cure. And I'm just blessed by God or sheer luck, I don't know, to live to be 39, have had the roller coaster of a life that I've had, and then come out on top for 16 years now, and get to where I've gotten and learn what I've learned, knowledge wise and experience wise, the last 12 years. Yeah,